The house felt different today. I couldn't explain it, not in any logical way, but the moment I walked through the front door after my shift at the bookstore, something in the air had changed. It was heavier. Thicker. Like the walls themselves were holding their breath.
My Arya?
My father's voice
Yes, Father.
drifted from his study, tight and strained. Come here, sweetheart. We need to talk. My stomach dropped. Dad never called me into his study. That room was his sanctuary, filled with ledgers and late-night phone calls I wasn't supposed to hear. The place where he'd been spending more and more time over the past 6 months, emerging with deeper lines around his eyes and grayer hair at his temples. I set my bag down slowly, my hands suddenly cold. Dad. I pushed open the heavy oak door. He sat behind his desk, but he wasn't working. His hands were clasped in front of him, knuckles white, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. The lamp cast harsh shadows across his face, making him look older than his 53 years. He looked broken. Sit down, please. His voice cracked on the last word. I sank into the chair across from him, my heart hammering against my ribs. What's wrong? Is it about Mom? She'd been gone for 3 years, but sometimes the grief still hit him in waves. No. He finally looked at me, and what I saw in his eyes made my blood run cold. Guilt. Shame. And something that looked horribly like resignation. Arya, God, I don't know how to say this. You're scaring me. He stood abruptly, turning to the window that overlooked our modest backyard. We lived in a nice neighborhood, not wealthy, but comfortable. Or at least, we used to be. I'd noticed things lately. Smaller groceries. Lights turned off in unused rooms. The way Dad's hands shook when he paid bills. I made mistakes, he said quietly. Business mistakes. I borrowed money from the wrong people, and his voice broke. I can't pay it back, Arya. I've tried everything. Sold everything I could. But it's not enough. It'll never be enough. The room seemed to tilt. How much? I whispered. $500,000. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. But we don't have, Dad, we don't have that kind of money. We've never had that kind of money. I know. He turned back to me, and there were tears in his eyes. My father, who hadn't cried even at Mom's funeral, had tears streaming down his face. They gave me 2 options. Either I pay the debt. He swallowed hard. Or they kill me. And then they come for you. Ice flooded my veins. Who? But even as I asked, I knew. Everyone in our city knew there was only one group you didn't borrow from. Only one name that made grown men cross the street. The Moretti family. The air left my lungs. The Morettis. The most powerful crime family on the East Coast. I'd seen their name in newspapers, heard whispers in coffee shops. They controlled everything: drugs, weapons, politicians, judges. Cross them, and you disappeared. Cooperate, and you might survive. Might. There's a third option, Dad said, his voice barely audible. I looked up at him, hope and dread warring in my chest. Dante Moretti. He couldn't seem to continue. What about him? But my voice was shaking because I knew that name too. Everyone did. Dante Moretti. The eldest son. The heir. They called him Illinois Diavolo, the devil. I'd seen his picture once, in a newspaper article about a federal investigation that went nowhere. Dark eyes. Sharp jaw. The kind of face that would be handsome if it didn't look so lethal. The article said he'd taken over operations 5 years ago when his father stepped back. Since then, the Moretti empire had doubled in size and brutality. Bodies turned up in rivers. Witnesses disappeared. Competitors simply ceased to exist. He was 33 years old and already one of the most feared men in the country. He needs a wife, Dad whispered. The words didn't make sense at first. I heard them, but my brain couldn't process them. Couldn't connect them to me. What? He's been looking for someone suitable. Someone clean. Someone who isn't from his world. Dad's hands were shaking. When he found out about my debt, he made an offer. He'd forgive everything. Wipe it clean. Keep us safe. He paused. In exchange for you. The room started spinning. No. The word burst out of me. No, Dad, you can't. He'll protect you, Dad said desperately, rushing around the desk to kneel in front of me. He grabbed my hands, and his were ice cold. I asked about that specifically. He promised you'd be safe. Taken care of. You'd want for nothing. I'd be married to a monster. My voice was rising, hysteria clawing at my throat. Dad, he kills people. He's a criminal. I can't. Or we both die, Arya. The shout echoed in the study. We stared at each other, both breathing hard. Dad's face crumpled. I'm sorry, he whispered. God, baby, I'm so sorry. If there was any other way. I've looked. I've begged. I've tried everything. This is the only option. And if we refuse? He squeezed my hands tighter. They won't just kill me quickly. They'll make an example of us. Both of us. I can't let that happen to you. I won't. I felt numb. Disconnected from my body. How old is he? I heard myself ask. 33. 15 years older than me. Old enough to be, not my father, but something close. When? My voice sounded strange. Hollow. Dad's face twisted with grief. 3 days. The wedding is in 3 days. 3 days. 72 hours until I became the property of the devil himself. Does he know? I swallowed against the nausea rising in my throat. Does he know I don't want this? He knows it's arranged. But Arya. Dad's voice dropped even lower. He chose you specifically. After he found out about the debt, he had you investigated. Followed. He saw your picture and said. Dad's jaw tightened. He said you were perfect. Perfect. The word sent chills down my spine. What did a man like Dante Moretti want with someone like me? I worked in a bookstore. I was taking online classes to finish my degree. I'd had one boyfriend, and we'd broken up after 3 months because I wasn't ready for anything serious. I was nobody. Nothing. So why did the most dangerous man in the city want me? What if I run? I whispered. Dad's eyes filled with fresh tears. Then we both die, sweetheart. And he'll find you. Men like Dante Moretti, they own this city. This state. There's nowhere to go that he can't reach. I pulled my hands from his and stood on shaking legs. I walked to the window, staring out at the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, Dante Moretti was living his life. Making his plans. Probably killing someone. And in 3 days, I'd be his wife. I need to think, I said numbly. Arya. Please, Dad. Just, give me tonight. He nodded slowly, defeat written across his features. I'm sorry, he said again. You have to know, if I could take your place, I would. If I could fix this any other way. I know. And I did know. My father loved me. He'd raised me alone after Mom died, worked 2 jobs to keep me in school, never missed a single one of my piano recitals even when he was exhausted. He wasn't a bad man. He was just a desperate one. And desperate men made terrible choices. I left the study and climbed the stairs to my room on autopilot. Once inside, I locked the door and slid down against it, my legs finally giving out. 3 days. I grabbed my laptop with trembling hands and opened it. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment before I typed, Dante Moretti. The search results loaded, and my stomach turned. The first image was recent, a photo taken outside a courthouse. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than our car, and his dark hair was perfectly styled. But it was his eyes that made my breath catch. Even in the photo, even from a distance, they were intense. Dark. The kind of eyes that saw everything and gave nothing away. He was handsome. Objectively, undeniably handsome, with sharp features and a strong jaw. But there was something about the set of his mouth, the way he carried himself, that screamed danger. I scrolled through article after article. Moretti heir expands criminal empire. Federal investigation into Moretti family crumbles. Bodies found in river linked to organized crime. Witness in Moretti trial disappears. One article had a quote from a retired FBI agent. Dante Moretti is the most dangerous kind of criminal. He's smart, he's patient, and he's absolutely ruthless. He doesn't get his hands dirty unless he wants to. And when he wants to. God help you. I slammed the laptop shut, my heart racing. This was the man I was supposed to marry. The man who would have complete control over my life. The man who could kill me on a whim and no one would ever know. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Don't be afraid, Arya. I'll take care of you. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. He was already watching me. She was even more beautiful than in the photographs. I watched the security footage from the camera I'd had installed across from her house, studying the way Arya Bennett moved. Graceful. Delicate. Like a dancer, though my research said she'd quit ballet at 16 when her mother got sick. She'd just gotten home from work. The little bookstore on Fifth where she spent her days surrounded by stories and dreams. So innocent. So untouched by the darkness that saturated my world. Perfect. Boss? My second-in-command, Luca, stood in the doorway of my office. The father agreed. He had no choice. I leaned back in my chair, still watching the screen. Arya had disappeared inside. Probably finding out right now. Probably crying. The wedding is scheduled for Saturday. You sure about this? Luca's voice was carefully neutral. There are other ways to handle debts. I don't want other ways. I'd seen her 3 months ago, purely by accident. I'd gone to collect from her father personally, something I rarely did anymore, and she'd been there. Home from work early. She'd walked right past me in the hallway, her arms full of books, completely unaware of who I was. She'd smiled at me. A small, polite smile, the kind you give strangers. And then she was gone, disappearing into her room while I destroyed her father's world in his study. But that smile. That face. I'd been thinking about it ever since. I had the Bennett file pulled that night. Arya Rose Bennett. 18 years old. No criminal record. Never even had a parking ticket. She volunteered at the library. Took online courses in literature. Worked part-time at a bookstore owned by an elderly woman who spoke about her like she was a granddaughter. Clean. Innocent. Everything my world wasn't. And I wanted her. Not just for a night. Not just for the novelty of corrupting something pure. I wanted to keep her. Protect her. Own her in ways that would probably terrify her if she knew. I'd been planning to approach her father about an arrangement eventually. But when he came crawling to me 6 weeks ago, desperate for a loan he'd never be able to repay, I saw an opportunity. I could have just killed him. Would have been simpler. But then Arya would have been alone. Vulnerable. And men like me had enemies who wouldn't hesitate to hurt an innocent girl to get to me. No. This way, she'd be mine. Legally, officially mine. Under my protection. In my home. In my bed. The thought sent heat through my veins. I'd been with plenty of women. Models. Socialites. Even a senator's daughter once. But they all knew what I was. They came to me for the danger, the money, the power. They wanted the thrill of sleeping with the devil. Arya didn't want any of that. She'd run from me if she could. Which meant I'd have to make her stay. What if she refuses? Luca asked. I smiled, though there was no humor in it. Then her father dies screaming, and she spends the rest of her short life knowing she could have saved him. That's cold, even for you. I'm not doing this to be kind, Luca. I stood, buttoning my suit jacket. I'm doing this because she's mine. She just doesn't know it yet. My phone buzzed. The security alert I'd set up. Arya had opened her laptop. I pulled up the feed from the monitoring software I'd had installed last week. She was searching my name. Smart girl. She'd find the articles. The investigations. The bodies. All the proof she needed that I was exactly what people said I was. A monster. A killer. The devil in $1,000 suit. But she'd also see my face. And despite everything else, I knew I was attractive. Women had been throwing themselves at me since I was 16. It wouldn't make her less afraid, but maybe it would make the fear a little more complicated. I watched her scroll through the articles, watched her face pale, watched her slam the laptop shut. And then I sent the text. Don't be afraid, Arya. I'll take care of you. It was a lie and the truth. She should be afraid of me. Terrified, even. Because I was everything she thought I was and worse. But I would take care of her. Protect her. Give her everything she could ever want. Everything except freedom. The dress will be delivered tomorrow, I told Luca. White. Traditional. I want her to look like a bride. Even though she's not going willingly? Especially because she's not going willingly. I turned to face him. I want everyone to see her walk down that aisle. I want them to see me put my ring on her finger. I want the whole city to know that Arya Bennett belongs to me now. That anyone who touches her, looks at her wrong, even thinks about her. I let the threat hang in the air. They answered to me. Luca nodded slowly. He'd been with me long enough to know when I was serious. And I'd never been more serious about anything in my life. 3 days. In 3 days, Arya Bennett would become Dante Moretti. And then the real work would begin, making her understand that while she might fear me, while she might hate me, while she might spend every night praying for escape, she was mine now. And I took care of what was mine. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those photographs. Those articles. The cold, dark eyes of the man who would own me in less than 48 hours. No. Not 48 hours anymore. Today was Friday. The wedding was tomorrow. I had less than 24 hours of freedom left. The dress arrived at 10 in the morning. I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at untouched toast, when the doorbell rang. Dad answered it, and I heard low voices. Murmured thanks. The rustle of fabric. Then he appeared in the kitchen doorway, holding a white garment bag with elegant script embossed on it. Valentina's Bridal. The most expensive bridal boutique in the city. He sent this, Dad said quietly. His eyes were red-rimmed. He hadn't slept either. There's a note. He handed me a small card. Heavy cardstock, like everything else associated with Dante Moretti, was expensive and elegant. The handwriting was bold, masculine. Wear this tomorrow. Wear your hair down. No makeup except lipstick, something red. These aren't requests. D. My hands shook as I set the card down. He's telling me how to look, I whispered. For my own wedding, his. Aria. Dad reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Don't. My voice cracked. Just, don't. I took the garment bag and carried it upstairs, feeling its weight. In my room, I hung it on the back of my door and stared at it for a long moment. Then, with trembling fingers, I unzipped it. The dress was breathtaking. White silk and lace, with delicate beading that caught the light. The bodice was fitted, modest but elegant, with a sweetheart neckline. The skirt flowed like water. It was exactly my size, which meant he'd had me measured somehow. Watched me. Studied me. It was the most beautiful dress I'd ever seen. And I hated it. I hated that he'd chosen it. That he'd known somehow it would be perfect. That he'd given me no choice in this either. I spent the rest of the day in a fog. Friends texted, want to hang out? And I made excuses. How could I explain that in 24 hours, I'd be married to a mobster? That my father had sold me to save his own life? At 7 p.m., another text from the unknown number. Sleep well, Aria. Tomorrow, you become mine. I threw my phone across the room. The morning of the wedding, I stood in front of my mirror and barely recognized myself. The dress fit perfectly. My dark hair fell in waves down my back, just as he'd ordered. And the lipstick, a deep red I'd never worn before, made me look older. Different. Like someone who could be married to a man like Dante Moretti. Dad knocked softly on my door. Sweetheart? The car is here. Of course it was. Dante probably had everything timed to the second. I took one last look at my room. At the bookshelf stuffed with paperbacks. At the desk where I'd studied. At the bed where I'd dreamed of a future that looked nothing like this. Then I walked out. The car was a black Mercedes with tinted windows. The driver opened the door without speaking, his face carefully blank. He probably worked for Dante. Probably knew exactly what this was. A purchase. A transaction. Dad sat beside me in the back, and we didn't speak during the 20-minute drive to the church. What was there to say? Sorry I'm selling you to the devil? Hope your wedding night doesn't end in murder? The church was small but beautiful, tucked away in an old neighborhood. Elegant. Private. Of course Dante would want privacy for this. When we pulled up, I saw the guards. They were everywhere. Men in dark suits with obvious bulges under their jackets. At least a dozen of them, stationed around the church like sentries. Watching. Waiting. Making sure I didn't run. Oh God, I whispered. You can do this, Dad said, but his voice shook. Just get through today. And then I spend the rest of my life with him. I turned to look at my father. This is forever, Dad. You know that, right? There's no divorce for men like Dante Moretti. Once I'm his. I couldn't finish. His face crumpled, but I looked away. I couldn't comfort him. Not now. Not when he was the reason I was here. The driver opened my door, and I stepped out into the warm afternoon. The guards all turned to look at me. Assessing. Judging. Seeing me as their boss's new acquisition. I wanted to scream. Instead, I took my father's arm and let him lead me into the church. The interior was dim and cool, lit by candles. There were no guests. No friends or family. Just more guards lining the walls, and at the front. Dante Moretti. He stood at the altar with his back to me, talking to an older man I didn't recognize. But even from behind, his presence was overwhelming. Tall, at least 6'2", with broad shoulders under a perfectly tailored black suit. His dark hair was styled, and when he shifted, I caught the glint of a watch that probably cost more than my entire life. Then he turned. And I forgot how to breathe. The photographs hadn't done him justice. Or maybe they had, but seeing him in person was different. He was devastatingly handsome, sharp jaw, high cheekbones, lips that would have been sensual if they weren't set in such a hard line. But it was his eyes that made my knees weak. Dark. So dark they were almost black. And trained on me with an intensity that felt physical. He was looking at me the way a predator looks at prey. No, that wasn't quite right. He was looking at me the way a man looks at something he owns. Walk, Dad whispered, his hand tightening on my arm. Somehow, my legs moved. One step. Another. The aisle felt impossibly long, and with every step, Dante's gaze never wavered. He watched me approach like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. It should have been romantic. Instead, it was terrifying. We reached the altar, and Dad placed my hand in Dante's. His skin was warm. His grip firm but not painful. He wore a gold signet ring on his right hand, the Moretti family crest, I realized. A lion holding a sword. How fitting. Dad stepped back, and suddenly I was alone with him. Standing so close I could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive, cedar and amber. You look beautiful, Dante said quietly. His voice was deep, smooth, with just a hint of an accent. It sent shivers down my spine, though I couldn't tell if they were from fear or something else. I didn't respond. Couldn't. My throat was too tight. The priest cleared his throat and began. Dearly beloved. The words washed over me. I heard them, but they didn't register. All I could focus on was Dante's hand holding mine, his thumb brushing slowly across my knuckles. A gentle touch that felt like a brand. Do you, Dante Alessandro Moretti, take this woman? I do. His voice was firm. Certain. Like he'd never been more sure of anything. And do you, Aria Rose Bennett, take this man? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Dante's grip tightened slightly. Not painful. Just, firm. A reminder. Say it, or your father dies. I do. The words barely made it past my lips. Then by the power vested in me. The priest smiled, completely oblivious to the horror of what was happening. I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Dante turned to me fully, releasing my hand only to cup my face. His palms were warm against my cheeks, and his eyes. God, his eyes were boring into mine like he could see straight through to my soul. Don't be afraid, he murmured, so quietly only I could hear. I'm not going to hurt you. Then he kissed me. It was supposed to be ceremonial. Quick. Appropriate for a church wedding. It wasn't. His lips claimed mine with a possessiveness that made my head spin. Not brutal, but firm. Confident. He kissed me like he owned me, which, I supposed, he now did. His hand slid into my hair, tilting my head back slightly, deepening the kiss just enough to make my breath catch. When he finally pulled away, I was dizzy. And terrified by the heat I'd felt in that kiss. He smiled slightly, like he knew exactly what he'd done to me. Then he took my hand again and turned us to face the empty church. Mrs. Moretti, he said, his voice carrying in the silence. How does it feel? Like a nightmare. Like a prison sentence. Like the end of my life. I don't know, I whispered honestly. You will. He raised my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. The gesture was old-fashioned. Gentlemanly. It didn't match the darkness in his eyes. She was trembling. I could feel it through her hand, the way her whole body shook with barely contained fear. She'd gone pale when she first saw me, and for a moment, I'd worried she might actually faint. But she'd walked down that aisle. Said her vows. Let me kiss her. And now she was mine. Legally. Officially. Irrevocably mine. The satisfaction that rolled through me was primal. I'd wanted this for 3 months. Planned it for 6 weeks. And now, finally, Aria Bennett, no, Aria Moretti, stood beside me wearing my ring. A platinum band with a single diamond. Simple but unmistakably expensive. I'd designed it myself, wanting something that would mark her as mine without being ostentatious. She hadn't even looked at it yet. Probably couldn't bring herself to. We should go, I said, keeping my voice gentle. I didn't want to spook her more than necessary. The car's waiting. Her father approached, tears streaming down his face. Aria, No. She pulled her hand from mine and stepped back from both of us. Don't you dare. Sweetheart. You sold me. Her voice was shaking now, All the emotion she'd been holding back finally breaking through. You sold me to him, and now you want, what? Forgiveness? Absolution. Arya, I said quietly. Not here. She rounded on me, and for the first time, there was fire in her eyes instead of just fear. Don't tell me what to do. Don't. Her voice cracked, and suddenly the fight went out of her. She swayed slightly, and I moved on instinct, catching her elbow. I've got you, I murmured. I don't want you to have me, she whispered back, but there was no strength behind it. I looked at her father. Leave. Now. He opened his mouth to protest, but something in my expression made him think better of it. He nodded once, shot his daughter one last anguished look, and left. Luca appeared at my elbow. Boss? Everything ready. Good. I turned back to Arya, who was staring at the floor like she couldn't bear to look at me. Come. We're going home. That's not my home, she said. It is now. I guided her toward the exit, my hand on the small of her back. She didn't pull away, probably knew it would be pointless, but I could feel the tension radiating from her. Outside, the Mercedes waited. But I'd also brought the Aston Martin. Sleek, black, powerful. The car I drove when I wanted to make an impression. Arya stopped when she saw it. Where are we going? I told you. Home. What about? She gestured vaguely. A reception? Cake? All the normal wedding things. This isn't a normal wedding, Arya. I opened the passenger door. Get in. For a moment, I thought she might refuse. Might make a scene, scream, run. My men would stop her, of course, but I didn't want that. Didn't want her first memory of being my wife to be me forcing her. But then her shoulders slumped in defeat, and she slid into the car. I closed the door gently and walked around to the driver's side. When I got in, she was pressed against the passenger door, as far from me as possible. I started the engine, and the car purred to life. Put your seatbelt on, I said. She didn't move. I reached across her, and she flinched. The small movement sent unexpected anger through me, not at her, but at the situation. At the fact that she was so afraid. I was careful not to touch her as I pulled the seatbelt across and clicked it into place. But I was close enough to smell her perfume. Something light and floral. Innocent. So different from the heavy, seductive scents the women in my world wore. I forced myself to pull back and put the car in gear. The drive to my estate took 30 minutes. Arya didn't speak, just stared out the window like she was memorizing her last glimpses of freedom. Maybe she was. You should eat something when we get there, I said, breaking the silence. You didn't have breakfast, did you? Her head snapped toward me. How do you know that? I know everything about you, Arya. I kept my eyes on the road, but I could feel her staring at me. What you eat. What you read. Where you go. I've been watching you for 3 months. That's. She swallowed hard. That's insane. That's thorough. I glanced at her. I don't do anything halfway. Especially not when it comes to something as important as choosing a wife. I'm not something you chose, she said, anger creeping back into her voice. I'm someone you bought. I prefer to think of it as an acquisition. I turned onto the private road that led to the estate. And you should know, I take care of my acquisitions. The gates came into view. Massive iron things, 15 feet tall, with the Moretti crest wrought into them. They opened automatically as we approached, and Arya's eyes widened. The estate spread out before us. 40 acres of manicured grounds, gardens, and at the center, the house itself. 3 stories of old-world architecture mixed with modern security. Home. And now, her prison. This is. She trailed off. Excessive. I suggested. Ostentatious? A monument to ill-gotten gains. I was going to say beautiful, she admitted quietly. I smiled. That too. I parked in front of the main entrance, and staff appeared immediately. My head of household, Elena, a stern woman in her 50s. 2 maids I'd hired specifically to attend to Arya. And Marco, one of my personal guards. They all stood at attention as I got out and walked around to open Arya's door. She stared up at them, overwhelmed. Mrs. Moretti, Elena said, bowing her head. Welcome home. Arya looked at me, panic in her eyes. I offered my hand. Come. Let me show you your new life. She stared at my hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, she placed her shaking fingers in my palm. And I led my wife into our home. The house was a mansion. No, That wasn't quite right. It was a palace. A fortress. Something out of a movie about old money and older secrets. Dante led me through massive double doors into a foyer that made me feel impossibly small. Marble floors. A crystal chandelier that probably cost more than my father's house. A sweeping staircase that split into two directions. And everywhere, that same feeling of being watched. "This is Elena," Dante said, gesturing to the severe-looking woman. "She runs the household. If you need anything, ask her." Elena nodded, her expression unreadable. "Mrs. Moretti." The name sent ice through my veins. I wasn't Aria Bennett anymore. That girl had died in the church. Now I was Aria Moretti. Property of the devil. "These are your personal maids," Dante continued, indicating the two younger women. "Maria and Sophia. They'll help you settle in." Both women curtsied slightly. They looked kind, but their eyes held pity. They knew what I was. What this marriage really meant. "And Marco is head of security," Dante finished. "He'll coordinate your protection detail." I blinked. "My what?" "You're my wife now," Dante said, like it was obvious. "That makes you a target. You'll have guards with you whenever you leave the estate." "I'm a prisoner," I whispered. His jaw tightened. "You're protected. There's a difference." Before I could argue, he took my elbow, his touch gentle but firm, and guided me toward the stairs. "Elena will bring lunch to our room. You need to eat." Our room. The words made my stomach drop. Of course we'd share a room. We were married. That was what married people did. They shared a room. A bed. A bed. Oh God. My legs almost gave out on the stairs, but Dante's hand on my back kept me moving. Up one flight. Down a hallway lined with expensive art. Past what looked like a library, an office, several closed doors. Then he stopped in front of a set of double doors at the end of the hall. "This is ours," he said quietly. He opened the doors, and I stepped into luxury. The room was enormous. A California king bed dominated one wall, dressed in charcoal gray linens. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the grounds. There was a sitting area with a leather couch and chairs. A fireplace. Artwork that was probably priceless. And through an open door, I glimpsed a bathroom that looked like something from a spa. "Your clothes are in the closet," Dante said. "I had everything from your house moved here yesterday." I turned to stare at him. "You went through my things?" "I had people do it." He shrugged off his suit jacket, draping it over a chair. "They were very careful. Nothing was damaged. Nothing except my entire life." He started unbuttoning his cuffs, rolling up his sleeves, and I caught sight of something that made my breath catch. Scars. His forearms were marked with them. Old knife wounds, from the look of it. And when he turned slightly, I saw more disappearing under his shirt. This man had been hurt. Had been in fights. Had probably killed people with his bare hands. And I was alone with him. "Arya." His voice was soft, and when I looked up, his dark eyes were studying me. "Sit down before you fall down." "I'm fine," I lied. "You're shaking." He moved toward me, and I backed up instinctively. His expression flickered, something almost like hurt, but he stopped. "I'm not going to touch you. Just sit. Please." The please surprised me. I'd expected commands, not requests. Numbly, I moved to the couch and sat, my wedding dress pooling around me. Dante sat across from me in one of the chairs, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. We studied each other in silence. Up close, he was even more devastating. Those dark eyes. The strong lines of his face. The way his shirt pulled across his shoulders. He was beautiful in a dangerous way, like a blade or a storm. "I'm going to tell you some things," he said finally. "And I need you to listen. Really listen. Can you do that?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. "Good." He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. "I know you're afraid of me. I know you think I'm a monster. And Arya?" His eyes met mine. "You're right to think that. I am a monster. I've done things that would give you nightmares. Killed men who got in my way. Destroyed lives. Built an empire on blood and fear." I felt tears prickling my eyes. "But," he continued, his voice dropping lower, "I've never hurt a woman. Never. And I'm not going to start with you." "Then why did you force me into this?" The question burst out of me. "If you're such a gentleman, why?" "Because I wanted you." Simple. Direct. Terrifying. "I saw you 3 months ago, and I wanted you. And men like me, we take what we want. That's not. It's not fair. It's not right. I know. He ran a hand through his hair, mussing the perfect style. But it's the truth. I wanted you, and I found a way to have you. My father. Your father was dead the moment he borrowed from me, Dante said bluntly. Men who can't pay their debts don't get second chances in my world. I would have killed him 6 weeks ago if I hadn't seen an opportunity. The casual way he talked about killing my father made me feel sick. So I gave him a choice, Dante continued. Marry you to me, or die. And yes, before you ask, if he'd refused, I would have killed him. And then I would have come for you anyway. That's insane, I whispered. That's obsession. He leaned back, his eyes never leaving mine. I've been obsessed with you for 3 months, Arya. I know it's fucked up. I know you didn't ask for this. But it's the truth. A knock at the door interrupted us. Elena entered with a tray laden with food, sandwiches, fruit, cheese, wine. Thank you, Elena, Dante said. Leave it on the table. She did, shooting me one quick glance before leaving and closing the door behind her. Eat, Dante said, standing and moving to the tray. He poured 2 glasses of wine, white, not red, and brought me one. You haven't eaten all day. I'm not hungry. I don't care. He held the glass out. Drink this at least. It'll help with the nerves. I took it because refusing seemed pointless. The wine was crisp and cold, probably expensive. I drank it faster than I should have. Dante watched me, then refilled my glass without comment. What happens now? I asked, my voice small. Now. He sat back down. You eat. You rest. You get used to being here. And tonight. I couldn't look at him. What happens tonight? Silence. When I finally looked up, his expression was unreadable. Tonight, he said carefully, you'll sleep in that bed. And I'll be in this room with you. My heart started racing. But, he continued, holding my gaze, I won't touch you. Not tonight. Not until you're ready. I blinked. What? You heard me. He stood, moving to the windows. I'm not an animal, Arya. I want you, God, I want you so badly it hurts, but I'm not going to force myself on my terrified wife on our wedding night. I don't understand. My head was spinning. You forced me to marry you, but you won't. Marriage was non-negotiable, he said. I needed you bound to me. Legally, permanently mine. But sex. He turned to look at me. That I can wait for. What if I'm never ready? I challenged. His smile was dark. Then I'll have a very long, very frustrating marriage. But Arya? He walked back toward me, stopping just close enough to make my breath catch. I think you will be. Eventually. You're delusional. Maybe. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers brushed my cheek, and I hated the way my skin tingled at the contact. Or maybe I see something you don't yet. He pulled back, and I could breathe again. Eat, he ordered, gesturing to the food. Then Maria and Sophia will help you change. That dress is beautiful, but it can't be comfortable. He was right. The boning in the bodice was digging into my ribs, and the weight of the skirt was exhausting. I picked at a sandwich while Dante made a phone call in Italian. I caught a few words, domani, tomorrow, sicuro, secure, but mostly I just listened to the cadence of his voice. When I couldn't eat anymore, I stood on shaky legs. I'd like to change now. Dante nodded and pressed a button on the wall. Seconds later, Maria and Sophia appeared. Help Mrs. Moretti change, Dante said. And make sure she's comfortable. He left through a door I hadn't noticed, his office, maybe, and suddenly I was alone with the 2 maids. Come, Signora, Maria said gently, taking my arm. She was older, maybe 40, with kind eyes. Let's get you out of this dress. They led me to the bathroom, which was, indeed, massive, and began the process of undoing the dozens of tiny buttons down my back. When the dress finally fell away, I stood in just my underwear, feeling exposed and vulnerable. Your things are here, Sophia said, gesturing to the closet. I wrapped myself in a robe they provided and went to look. My clothes were there, just as Dante had said. My books on a shelf. My laptop on a desk. Even my favorite blanket from home, folded neatly on a chair. It was like he'd moved my entire life here. Because he had. What would you like to wear, Signora? Maria asked. I grabbed the first thing I saw, an oversized t-shirt and pajama shorts. Not sexy. Not appealing. Just, safe. When I was changed, they braided my hair and left me alone. I stood in the middle of the massive bedroom, feeling tiny and lost. The door opened, and Dante returned. He changed too, into dark slacks and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled up. Casual. But somehow still commanding. Better? He asked. I want to go home, I whispered. You are home. This isn't my home. It's a prison. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, stopping close enough that I had to tilt my head back to look at him. I know it feels that way now. But give it time, Arya. Give me time. Time for what? To brainwash me? To make me forget who I was? Time to realize, he said quietly, that maybe being here isn't as bad as you think. You're insane. Probably. He smiled slightly. But I'm your husband now. So you're stuck with my particular brand of insanity. I wanted to scream. Cry. Hit him. Run. But I was so tired. The adrenaline that had been keeping me upright all day was finally fading, and exhaustion crashed over me like a wave. Dante saw it. You need to sleep. I can't, my voice cracked. I can't sleep in a bed with you. Then sleep on top of the covers, he said. I'll stay below them. But Arya? His voice turned hard. You're not sleeping anywhere else. This is our room. Our bed. Get used to it. He walked to the door, locked it, locking me in, and then went to the sitting area. He grabbed a blanket and pillow from a chest and settled into the large armchair facing the bed. What are you doing? I asked. Sleeping here. He adjusted the pillow. You get the bed. I'll take the chair. But. I said I wouldn't touch you, Arya. I meant it. His dark eyes found mine across the room. Now get in bed before you collapse. She was still standing there, swaying with exhaustion, too stubborn or scared to get in the bed. Stubborn, I decided. Fear would have sent her running or crying. But she was standing there, chin raised, defiant even in her exhaustion. I loved it. Arya, I said, gentling my voice. Please. Get in bed. I promise, on whatever you hold sacred, I won't come near you tonight. She stared at me for a long moment, searching my face for the lie. She wouldn't find one. I'd meant what I said. I wanted her desperately, had been half-hearted since I'd seen her in that dress, but I wouldn't take her like this. Wouldn't make our first time together something she'd remember with horror. Finally, she moved to the bed and climbed in, staying on top of the covers just as I'd suggested. She curled up on the far edge, as far from my side as possible, and pulled the decorative throw over herself. I watched her tremble. The light, she whispered. Can we turn it off? I'd planned to leave it on, wanted to watch her, even from a distance, but the vulnerability in her voice stopped me. Of course. I hit the switch, plunging the room into darkness except for the moonlight streaming through the windows. In the shadows, I heard her breathing. Fast. Scared. Arya, I said quietly. I know you don't believe me, but I meant what I said earlier. I'm not going to hurt you. You're safe here. Safer than you've ever been. I don't feel safe, she whispered back. I know. But you will. Eventually. Silence fell, broken only by our breathing. I made myself comfortable in the chair, as comfortable as one could be sleeping sitting up, and closed my eyes. But I didn't sleep. How could I? The woman I'd been obsessing over for 3 months was 20 feet away, in my bed, wearing nothing but a t-shirt and shorts. Her scent, that light, floral perfume mixed with something uniquely her, filled the room. She was mine now. Legally. Completely. And I'd never wanted anything more than I wanted to cross this room, climb into that bed, and show her exactly what it meant to be Mrs. Moretti. But I didn't. Because I'd promised. And despite what the world thought of me, despite the blood on my hands and the sins on my soul, I kept my promises. Especially to her. Around 2 a.m., I heard her breathing even out. She'd finally fallen asleep. I opened my eyes and let myself look. She'd kicked off the throw and was curled into a ball, her dark hair spilling across the pillow. Even in sleep, she didn't look peaceful. Her brow was furrowed, and occasionally she'd make small distressed sounds. Nightmares. Of course she was having nightmares. I stood slowly, quietly, and crossed to the bed. I didn't get close, didn't want to risk waking her, but I stood there for a long moment, just watching. She was so beautiful it hurt. Mine, I whispered to the darkness. You're mine now, Arya. And I'm going to spend every day proving to you that's not the tragedy you think it is. She shifted in her sleep, and I forced myself back to the chair. Tomorrow, her real life here would begin. I'd show her the house, the grounds. Introduce her to my world. Start the slow process of making her understand that while she might not have chosen this, while she might hate me now, I would take care of her. Protect her. Give her everything she could ever want. Everything except freedom. Because that, I would never give her. She was mine. And I took care of what was mine. That I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then memory crashed back like a tidal wave, and I sat up so fast my head spun. The bedroom. The estate. The wedding. Dante. I looked around frantically, but the chair where he'd spent the night was empty. The blanket was folded neatly, the pillow stacked on top. Like he'd never been there at all. Except he had been. All night. Watching me sleep. The thought made my skin crawl, and something else I didn't want to name. I climbed out of bed, my body stiff from tension, and padded to the bathroom. It was even more impressive in daylight. Marble everywhere, a rainfall shower that could fit 4 people, a bathtub that looked like a small pool. There were fresh towels laid out, and on the counter, I found high-end toiletries. Everything still in packaging. New. For me. I caught sight of myself in the mirror and barely recognized the reflection. My hair was tangled from sleep, the braid Maria had done falling apart. My eyes were red-rimmed and shadowed. I looked like I'd been crying, though I didn't remember doing it. Maybe I had. In my sleep. I washed my face and tried to make myself presentable, then ventured back into the bedroom. My stomach growled. I'd barely eaten yesterday, but I didn't know if I was allowed to leave. If Dante expected me to stay here. Wait for him. Like a good little wife. The thought made anger flare in my chest, hot and bright. I wasn't going to be a prisoner in this room. If I was stuck here, stuck in this marriage, I at least deserved to know my cage. I pulled on jeans and a simple sweater, then walked to the door. It was unlocked. I'd expected it to be locked. Expected to be trapped. But the handle turned easily, and I stepped into the hallway. Immediately, a figure moved. Marco, the head of security from yesterday, had been standing against the wall. "Mrs. Moretti," he said, straightening. "Good morning." "Is it?" I muttered. If he heard the bitterness in my voice, he didn't react. "Mr. Moretti asked me to tell you that breakfast is being served in the dining room. He's waiting for you." Of course he was. And if I don't want breakfast? Marco's expression didn't change. "He said you'd say that. He asked me to remind you that you didn't eat dinner last night, and if you don't eat breakfast, he'll have it brought to you and personally ensure you eat every bite." I felt heat rise in my cheeks. He can't force me to eat. With respect, I think you'll find Mr. Moretti can be very persuasive when he wants to be. The way he said it, carefully neutral, told me Marco had seen exactly how persuasive Dante could be. I didn't want to find out. "Fine," I said. "Where's the dining room?" He gestured down the hall. "I'll show you." We walked in silence through the enormous house. In daylight, it was even more impressive and intimidating. Everything was expensive, elegant, perfect. Like a museum. Not a home. We descended the grand staircase and turned down another hallway. Marco stopped in front of a set of double doors. "He's inside," Marco said. "I'll be out here if you need anything." I almost laughed. If I needed anything. Like what? An escape route? I pushed open the doors. The dining room was massive, with a table that could easily seat 20 people. But Dante sat at one end, a laptop open in front of him, a cup of coffee in his hand. He was dressed for business, charcoal suit, white shirt, no tie yet. His dark hair was still damp, like he just showered. He looked up when I entered, and something flickered across his face. Relief? Pleasure? "Good morning," he said, closing the laptop. "I was beginning to think you'd make me come get you. Your guard said you'd force-feed me if I didn't come down." I said I'd persuade you. He gestured to the seat at his right, close, but not at the opposite end of the table. "Sit. Please." I considered refusing. Considered turning around and walking out. But my stomach growled again, betraying me. I Saturday. Immediately, Elena appeared with a plate. Eggs, bacon, toast, fruit. It looked and smelled amazing, which annoyed me. "Coffee or tea?" she asked. "Coffee," I said quietly. "Please." She poured me a cup from a silver carafe and disappeared. Dante watched me, his dark eyes tracking my every movement as I picked up my fork. "Did you sleep?" he asked. "Yes. I didn't mention the nightmares." "Good." He sipped his coffee. "I have meetings this morning. Business I can't postpone. But this afternoon, I'll show you the grounds. Help you get familiar with your new home." "It's not my home. Arya." His voice held a warning. "We're not doing this again. This is your home now. The sooner you accept that, the easier everything will be." I set down my fork. "Easy for you, maybe. You're not the one who was sold." "No," he agreed. "I'm the one who bought. And I intend to make sure my investment is well cared for." "I'm not an investment. I'm a person. You're my wife." He leaned forward slightly. "And you will be treated as such. With respect. With care. You'll have everything you could possibly want. Except freedom." His jaw tightened. "Except freedom," he agreed. "But Arya, you have to understand, the world I live in, the enemies I have, letting you roam free would be signing your death warrant. You're safer here. Or you just want to keep me locked up like a doll in a box." Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "If I wanted you locked up, you'd be in that bedroom with the door bolted. Instead, you're here. Having breakfast. With a guard who will escort you anywhere in this house or on these grounds you want to go. That's not imprisonment. That's protection." "From what?" "From men who would love nothing more than to hurt what's mine." He said it so matter-of-factly. "I have enemies, Arya. Rival families. People I've crossed. And the moment you became Mrs. Moretti, you became a target." The thought sent ice through my veins. I hadn't considered that. Hadn't thought beyond my own situation to the broader implications. "So I'm bait," I said. "No." His voice turned hard. "You're protected. There's a difference. Anyone who touches you, even looks at you wrong, will die screaming. I'll make sure of it." The casual way he talked about killing should have horrified me. It did horrify me. But there was something else underneath. Something I didn't want to examine too closely. He meant it. Every word. He would kill to protect me. Because I was his. "Eat," Dante said, his tone softening slightly. "Then Elena will show you around. The library, the gym, the pool. This house has everything you could need. Except a way out." He smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Except that." I forced myself to eat, if only to stop the conversation. The food was delicious, which I resented. I wanted to hate everything about this place. But the eggs were perfectly cooked, the bacon crispy, the fruit fresh. Dante worked on his laptop while I ate, occasionally glancing up at me. Like he was checking to make sure I was still there. Still real. When I finished, he stood. "I have to go. I'll be back by 3. Be ready." "Ready for what?" "For me to show you what being Mrs. Moretti really means." He walked around the table, and I tensed. But he only picked up his suit jacket from the back of a chair. "One more thing." He pulled a phone from his pocket and set it on the table in front of me. It was new, still in the box. "What's this?" "Your phone. My number is programmed in. Elena's. Marco's. Emergency services." He paused. "Your father's number is blocked." My head snapped up. "You can't." "I can. And I have." His expression was unyielding. "You don't need to talk to him. He made his choice. Now you live with the consequences." "He's my father." "He sold you to save his own skin," Dante said bluntly. "He doesn't deserve your loyalty. And you do." I stood, anger giving me courage. "You forced me into this. You're keeping me here against my will. How are you any better than him?" Dante moved so fast I didn't have time to react. Suddenly he was right in front of me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "I'm better," he said quietly, dangerously, "because I'll never let anyone hurt you. Your father threw you to the wolves. I am the wolf, Arya. And you're under my protection now." We stood there, inches apart, the air between us electric. His eyes bored into mine, dark and intense and full of things I couldn't name. I should have been terrified. Should have been screaming. Instead, I felt my breath catch. "I have to go," he said, his voice rougher now. "Be good, Arya. Don't make me worry." Then he was gone, striding out of the dining room and leaving me standing there with my heart racing. Elena appeared moments later. "Are you finished, Mrs. Moretti?" I nodded numbly. "Then let me show you around," she said. The house can be confusing at first, but you'll learn quickly. I followed her out, trying to ignore the way my skin still tingled from Dante's proximity. Trying to ignore the fact that when he'd been that close, a small, traitorous part of me had wondered what it would feel like if he'd kissed me. Not like yesterday. Not for show. But really kissed me. I shoved the thought down deep where it belonged and focused on Elena's tour. The house was enormous. 3 floors, dozens of rooms, hallways that seemed to go on forever. Elena showed me the library, 2 stories of books with rolling ladders and leather chairs. The gym, complete with equipment that looked like it belonged in a professional facility. A media room with a screen that took up an entire wall. The pool was outside, covered by a retractable roof. The water was heated, Elena explained, so I could use it year-round. "Do you swim, Mrs. Moretti?" she asked. "I used to." I stared at the pristine blue water. Before my mother got sick. Before I had to quit activities to help at home. Before my father ruined everything. "Well, you can again now," Elena said gently. "Mr. Moretti wants you to be comfortable here. To have everything you need." Everything except freedom, I thought again. We toured the gardens next. They were beautiful, manicured lawns, flower beds that were still blooming despite the season, winding paths that led to secluded benches. It would have been romantic if it wasn't a prison. I noticed the guards. They were everywhere, positioned at strategic points around the grounds. Watching. Making sure I didn't run. As if I could. The estate was surrounded by that massive iron fence, probably electrified. And even if I somehow got past it, where would I go? Dante would find me. He'd made that clear. "The East Wing is Mr. Moretti's office area," Elena said as we walked back inside. "You're welcome there, of course, but he does ask that you knock if the door is closed. Business matters can be sensitive." I bet they could. Illegal, more likely. "And this," Elena opened a door on the 2nd floor, "might interest you." I stepped inside and gasped. It was a music room. A beautiful grand piano sat in the center, polished to a shine. There were other instruments too, a guitar, a violin in its case. Sheet music on stands. "Mr. Moretti had this prepared for you," Elena said. "He knows you used to play." Of course he did. He knew everything about me. I walked to the piano slowly, running my fingers over the keys. It had been years since I'd played. Years since I'd had the time or money for lessons. But I still remembered how it felt. The way the music could transport you somewhere else. "I'll leave you to explore," Elena said softly. "Lunch will be ready at noon. Marco will come find you." She left, closing the door behind her. I sat at the piano bench and stared at the keys. Part of me wanted to refuse. To reject this gift from my captor. But I missed music so much. Slowly, hesitantly, I began to play. The notes came back to me like muscle memory. Chopin. Debussy. Pieces I'd learned as a child. My fingers moved across the keys, and for a few precious moments, I forgot where I was. Forgot the wedding, the fear, the feeling of being trapped. I just existed. In the music. I didn't know how long I played. But when I finally stopped, my cheeks were wet with tears. And I realized this was Dante's strategy. Give me beautiful things. Comfortable things. Make this cage so gilded I'd forget it was still a cage. It was cruel. And it was working. Lunch was served in a smaller dining room. Just me and a plate of pasta that tasted like it came from a 5-star restaurant. I ate alone, which I preferred. I needed time to think. To process. After lunch, I went back to my room, our room, and found that Maria and Sophia had been busy. My clothes were all unpacked and hung in the massive closet. My books were arranged on shelves. My laptop was on the desk, plugged in and ready. They'd even put photos up. Pictures of me and my mother from before she got sick. Pictures of me at piano recitals, graduation, just living. It looked like my room. Like home. And I hated it. I grabbed my laptop and sat on the couch, determined to distract myself with something, anything. But when I opened it, I found the internet was restricted. I could access certain sites, news, shopping, social media, but anything related to escape plans, police, help organizations, was blocked. Of course. I slammed it shut and threw myself back against the couch. 3 p.m. came too quickly. I heard the door open and tensed, but I didn't turn around. "Aria." Dante's voice was closer than I expected. I looked up to find him standing in front of me, having changed out of his suit into dark jeans and a black sweater. He looked different. Younger. Almost normal. Almost. Ready? He asked. For what? I told you. I'm going to show you what being Mrs. Moretti means. He held out his hand. Come with me. I didn't take his hand, but I stood. Where are we going? You'll see. He led me downstairs and out a side door I hadn't noticed before. We walked across the grounds toward a building I'd assumed was a garage. It was, but not just for cars. Inside was a collection that made my jaw drop. Sports cars. Classic cars. Motorcycles. All gleaming and perfect. Pick one, Dante said. I blinked. What? Pick one. I'm taking you somewhere, and you get to choose how we get there. This felt like a test. Or a trap. Where are we going? Into the city. He leaned against a Ferrari, casual and confident. There are things you need to know. People you need to meet. And I'd rather do it now, while we can control the situation. I don't understand. You're my wife, Arya. That means you're part of this world now whether you like it or not. The sooner you understand how it works, the safer you'll be. He gestured to the cars. So pick. I looked at the collection. At the raw power and wealth represented here. Then my eyes landed on a motorcycle in the corner. A Ducati, sleek and black. That one, I said impulsively. Dante's eyebrows rose. You know how to ride? No. But you do. I met his eyes. And if I have to be close to you, I'd rather be moving fast. Something flickered across his face. Surprise? Respect? Fair enough. He grabbed 2 helmets from a shelf and tossed me one. But you hold on tight. Understand? If you fall, I'll... You'll what? Kill me? I'll lose my mind, he said quietly. So hold on. He straddled the bike and started it. The engine roared to life, powerful and dangerous. Just like him. I climbed on behind him, my heart pounding. This close, I could smell his cologne. Feel the heat of his body. When he pulled my arms around his waist, my breath caught. Tight, he ordered. I tightened my grip, my front pressed against his back. And then we were moving. Fast. So fast the world blurred. We flew down the driveway, through the gates, onto the main road. The wind whipped past us, and despite everything, despite the fear and anger and confusion, I felt something unexpected. Freedom. For just a moment, with the wind in my face and the road stretching ahead, I felt free. Dante took us into the city, weaving through traffic with expert precision. We rode for maybe 20 minutes before he pulled up in front of a building in the downtown area. Expensive. Old. The kind of place that reeked of money and power. He killed the engine and helped me off, then removed his helmet. Where are we? I asked. Family business. He took my hand, his grip firm but not painful, and led me inside. The lobby was marble and gold. A receptionist looked up and immediately stood. Mr. Moretti. Mrs. Moretti. They're waiting for you upstairs. Who was waiting? We rode an elevator to the top floor, and the doors opened onto what looked like a private club. Leather furniture. Dark wood. Men in expensive suits standing around, all conversation stopping when we entered. They stared at me. At us. Gentlemen, Dante said, his voice carrying easily. I'd like to introduce my wife. Arya Moretti. The room erupted in congratulations. Men came forward to shake Dante's hand, to nod respectfully at me. But I saw the calculation in their eyes. The assessment. They were wondering if I was a weakness or an asset. Dante. An older man stepped forward. He was probably in his 60s, with silver hair and the same dark eyes as Dante. His father? Papa, Dante said, and confirmed my suspicion. This is Arya. The man, Dante's father, studied me intently. Then, to my surprise, he smiled. Beautiful. I can see why you were willing to forgive such a large debt. My cheeks burned. She's under our protection now, Dante said, pulling me closer. I want everyone to know that. Anyone who touches her answers to me personally. The threat was clear. The men nodded, their expressions serious. Of course, Dante's father said. Welcome to the family, Arya. I wanted to say I didn't want to be part of this family. That this wasn't my choice. But surrounded by these men, criminals, all of them, I knew better than to make a scene. So I smiled. Nodded. Played the part of the dutiful wife. And hated myself for it. The meeting lasted 2 hours. 2 hours of sitting beside Dante while men discussed territories, shipments, payments. They spoke in code mostly, but I wasn't stupid. I knew what they were talking about. Drugs. Weapons. Money laundering. My husband ran a criminal empire, and now I was sitting in the middle of it. Dante kept one hand on my knee the entire time. A possessive gesture that said she's mine to everyone in the room. A few times, when the conversation turned particularly dark, his fingers would tighten slightly. A reminder to stay quiet. I did. When it was finally over, Dante stood and helped me up. We're leaving. Arya needs to get home. Home. Like the estate was really home and not a beautiful prison. His father approached us as the others filed out. She's quiet, he observed. She's smart, Dante corrected. She knows when to speak and when to listen. Good. His father looked at me directly. You understand what you married into, girl? I met his eyes. I understand I didn't have a choice. Dante's hand tightened on my waist in warning, but his father laughed. Spirit. I like that. He turned to Dante. Your mother had spirit too. Made life interesting. His expression grew serious. Protect her. Our enemies will see her as the easiest way to hurt you. I know. Do you? His father stepped closer. Because if you're not careful, if you let your guard down for even a moment, you'll lose her. And that will destroy you. The words hung heavy in the air. I won't lose her, Dante said quietly. I can't. We left shortly after, riding the motorcycle back through the city. But this time, Dante drove slower. Like he was giving me time to process everything I'd seen. When we got back to the estate, it was almost dark. He parked in the garage and helped me off the bike. You did well today, he said, removing his helmet. I know that was difficult. Difficult. I pulled off my own helmet. I just sat through a meeting about how many people you're going to kill this month. How much blood money you're moving. That was more than difficult, Dante. That was my life, he interrupted. Our life now. I don't want this life. I know. He ran a hand through his hair, mussing it. But it's the one you have. And Arya, you need to understand something. Those men in that room? They're dangerous. Lethal. Any one of them would kill you without a second thought if they thought it would benefit them. The only reason you're safe is because you're mine. So I'm supposed to be grateful? My voice was rising. Grateful that I'm property worth protecting? You're not property. His voice rose too. You're my wife. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing. We glared at each other, both breathing hard. Then Dante did something unexpected. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, visibly calming himself. You're right, he said quietly. From your perspective, I can see how this looks. How I look. He opened his eyes. But I'm trying, Arya. I'm trying to show you that this doesn't have to be a nightmare. That I can give you a good life here. A good life as your prisoner. A safe life as my wife. He stepped closer. Do you know what would happen to you if I let you go? If I just opened those gates and let you walk away? I didn't answer. Within 24 hours, one of my enemies would grab you. They'd torture you for information about me. About my operations. And when you couldn't tell them anything useful, because I've made sure you don't know anything that could hurt me, they'd kill you. His voice was matter-of-fact. Slowly. Painfully. Just to hurt me. I felt sick. So yes, he continued. You're here against your will. Yes, I took your freedom. But I also saved your life. The moment your father got involved with me, your life was over. This way, at least you get to live it. In a cage. In luxury. He gestured around us. You have everything you could want. Safety. Comfort. Me. The last word was softer. Is that really so terrible? I wanted to say yes. Wanted to throw his words back in his face. But standing there, looking at him in the dim light of the garage, I couldn't find the words. Because he wasn't wrong. My father had destroyed any chance I had at a normal life. And Dante, for all his darkness, for all his violence, he had protected me today. Showed me off. Made it clear that anyone who touched me would die. It was twisted. Wrong. Completely insane. But it was also the truth. I'm tired, I said finally. Can we go inside? Something like disappointment crossed his face, but he nodded. Of course. We walked back to the house in silence. Marco was waiting at the door. Everything secure? Dante asked. Yes, sir. No issues while you were gone. Good. Dante's hand found the small of my back again. Let's get you fed. You barely ate lunch. How do you know that? Elena tells me everything. He guided me toward the dining room. It's her job to make sure you're taken care of. You mean it's her job to spy on me? Both can be true. Dinner was another elaborate affair. Steak, roasted vegetables, a wine that probably cost more than my father's monthly mortgage used to. Dante sat across from me this time, watching me eat. Stop staring, I said. I can't help it. His voice was low. You're beautiful when you're angry. I'm always angry now. Then I'm always pleased. A small smile tugged at his lips. That's sick. Probably. He took a sip of wine. But honest. We ate in silence for a while. Then Dante set down his fork. I have to go away tomorrow, he said. My head snapped up. What? Business. In New York. I'll be gone 3 days. He watched my reaction carefully. I'm taking most of my men with me. But Marco will stay. And I'm tripling security here. 3 days without him. 3 days of, what? Freedom? Or just a different kind of prison? Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because I want you to know that even when I'm gone, you're still protected. Still safe. He paused. And because I want you to miss me. I almost choked on my wine. Miss you? Is that so impossible? He leaned forward. 3 days, Arya. 3 days to get used to the house. To settle in. And when I come back. His dark eyes held mine. When I come back, things are going to change between us. What does that mean? It means I've been patient. I've given you space. Time to adjust. His voice dropped lower. But I won't wait forever. You're my wife. And eventually, you're going to be my wife in every sense of the word. Heat flooded my face. You said you wouldn't force me. I won't. He stood, walking around the table until he was beside me. But I will seduce you. Slowly. Carefully. Until you come to me willingly. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering against my cheek. And you will, Arya. Eventually. You're delusional. We'll see. He pulled back, and I could breathe again. Finish your dinner. Then get some rest. I'll be leaving early in the morning. He left me sitting there, my heart racing and my face flushed. 3 days without him. I should have been relieved. So why did I feel something that was almost like disappointment? The next morning, I woke to find Dante already gone. His side of the chair, not bed, he'd slept in the chair again, was empty. But there was a note on the nightstand. Be good. I'll know if you're not. And Arya? I'll be thinking about you every moment I'm gone. I crumpled the note and threw it across the room. Then spent the next hour wondering what he was doing. If he was thinking about me like he'd said. The 3 days passed strangely. Without Dante's presence, the house felt different. Emptier. I had free run of the place, within reason, and I used it. I spent hours in the library, reading books I'd never had time for. I swam in the pool, the heated water soothing against my skin. I played piano until my fingers ached. Elena was kind in a distant way. Maria and Sophia chatted as they helped me dress each morning. Marco was ever present but quiet. And every night, I slept in that massive bed alone. I hated that I noticed Dante's absence. Hated that the room felt too big without him in it. On the third night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, finally giving up around midnight. I put on a robe and wandered downstairs to the library, thinking a book might help. I was curled up in one of the leather chairs, halfway through a thriller, when I heard it. Voices. Angry voices. I set down the book and moved quietly to the door. The voices were coming from Dante's office down the hall. I should have gone back to my room. Should have minded my own business. But I didn't. I crept down the hallway, staying in the shadows. The office door was cracked open, and light spilled out. Can't keep pretending this isn't a problem, a voice said. Not Dante. Someone else. It's handled, Marco replied. The boss made it clear. The boss is distracted by his new toy. The other voice was harsh. He's not thinking clearly. Careful. Marco's voice went cold. That's his wife you're talking about. Exactly. A liability. A weakness we don't need. I felt ice in my veins. Dante knew what he was doing, Marco said. She's protected. No one's getting to her. Unless they go through you. A pause. And we both know there are people who could do that. Are you threatening me? I'm being realistic. The Castellanos are making moves. They see the marriage as exactly what it is, a distraction. And they're going to exploit it. The Castellanos. I'd heard that name during the meeting. A rival family. Then we'll handle them, Marco said firmly. Like we always do. By killing more people? By starting a war? The other man laughed bitterly. All because Dante couldn't keep it in his pants. Get out. Marco's voice was deadly. Now. Before I forget, we're on the same side. I heard footsteps approaching the door and barely had time to duck into a nearby room before the other man stormed past. I waited, heart pounding, until I heard him leave through the front door. Then I crept back upstairs, my mind racing. I was a liability. A weakness. And now there were people, dangerous people, who wanted to use that against Dante. I should have been happy. Should have seen it as an opportunity. But all I felt was fear. Dante returned late the next afternoon. I was in the music room, playing piano, when I heard the commotion downstairs. Voices. Movement. The sound of him returning. I kept playing, forcing myself to focus on the music. The door opened behind me, but I didn't turn around. I see you've been practicing, Dante's voice said. My fingers stumbled on the keys. I stopped playing and turned to face him. He looked tired. His suit was rumpled, and there were shadows under his eyes. But when he saw me, something in his expression softened. Did you miss me? He asked. No, I lied. He smiled like he knew. Liar. He crossed the room and sat beside me on the piano bench. Close. Close enough that our shoulders touched. Play something for me, he said quietly. Why? Because I spent 3 days in meetings with men I hate, discussing business that bores me, when all I wanted was to be here. He looked at me. With you. I should have refused. Should have gotten up and walked away. Instead, I started to play. Beethoven this time. Moonlight Sonata. Melancholy and beautiful. Dante didn't speak. Just sat beside me, listening. And when I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Beautiful, he said finally. You're extraordinary, Aria. Do you know that? I'm ordinary, I whispered. I'm nothing special. You're special to me. He reached up and cupped my face, turning me to look at him. I know you don't believe me. I know you think this is all just possession. Obsession. But it's more than that. Then what is it? I don't know yet. His thumb brushed across my cheek. But I'm going to figure it out. We're going to figure it out. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. His lips met mine, soft and careful. Not claiming. Not demanding. Just kissing me. Like he wanted to. Like he'd been thinking about it for 3 days. And God help me, I kissed him back. It was brief. Gentle. Over almost before it began. When he pulled away, his eyes were dark with something I couldn't name. 3 days, he murmured. I lasted 3 days without touching you. I think I deserve a medal. You deserve a psych evaluation, I said, but my voice was breathless. He laughed, and the sound made something in my chest flutter. Come, he said, standing and offering his hand. I brought you something. What? You'll see. Against my better judgment, I took his hand. He led me to our bedroom, where a large box sat on the bed. Open it, he said. I approached cautiously and lifted the lid. Inside was a dress. Deep emerald green, elegant and beautiful. The kind of dress you wore to important events. What's this for? I asked. Tomorrow night. There's a gala. All the major families will be there. He moved behind me, his hands settling on my shoulders. And I want them to see you. See us together. Why? Because you're mine, he said simply. And I want the whole world to know it. I should have argued. Should have refused. But looking at that dress, feeling his hands on my shoulders, I found I didn't have the energy. Fine, I said quietly. Fine, he agreed. That night, for the first time since our wedding, Dante didn't sleep in the chair. He climbed into bed beside me, on top of the covers, as promised, but he was close. So close I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Good night, Aria, he whispered in the darkness. Good night, I whispered back. And for the first time in days, I slept soundly. The gala was being held at a hotel in the city. The kind of place that catered to the wealthy and powerful, where a single night cost more than most people made in a month. Maria and Sophia had spent hours getting me ready. My hair was swept up in an elegant style. My makeup was flawless. And the dress fit like it had been made for me. Which it probably had been. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked confident. Sophisticated. Like someone who belonged on Dante Moretti's arm. Like Mrs. Moretti. You look perfect, Sophia breathed. I felt like a fraud. Dante was waiting downstairs, and when I descended the staircase, he went still. He wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than a car. His dark hair was styled perfectly. And the way he looked at me, like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. Arya, he said, his voice rough. You're. I know. I reached the bottom of the stairs. Can we just go? He offered his arm, and I took it. His muscles were tense beneath the fabric. The drive to the hotel was quiet. Dante's hand rested on my knee, his thumb drawing slow circles that made my breath catch. Remember, he said as we pulled up. You're Mrs. Moretti tonight. These people will be watching. Judging. Looking for weakness. No pressure then, I muttered. He smiled slightly. Just stay close to me. I'll handle everything. The hotel lobby was packed with people in evening wear. Beautiful people. Dangerous people. I recognized some faces from the meeting. Dante's associates, his father. And others I didn't know. Rivals, maybe. Enemies pretending to be friends. Everyone turned to look when we entered. Dante pulled me closer, his hand moving to my waist. Possessive. Claiming. Dante. A woman approached, tall and stunning in a red dress. I heard you got married. I had to see for myself. Isabella, Dante said coolly. This is my wife, Arya. The woman, Isabella, looked me up and down with barely concealed disdain. She's very young. She's perfect, Dante said firmly. Isabella's smile didn't reach her eyes. Of course. Congratulations. She walked away, and I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Ex-girlfriend? I guessed. Something like that. Dante guided me toward the ballroom. Don't worry about her. The ballroom was massive, with crystal chandeliers and a live orchestra. Couples danced while others stood in clusters, drinks in hand, conducting business disguised as small talk. We made the rounds. Dante introduced me to dozens of people whose names I'd never remember. They all smiled. All congratulated us. All looked at me like I was a puzzle they couldn't solve. Why would Dante Moretti marry someone like her? Dance with me, Dante said suddenly, leading me onto the floor before I could protest. His hand settled on my waist, mine on his shoulder. We moved together, and despite everything, it felt natural. You're doing well, he murmured. I know this is overwhelming. That's an understatement. Just a little longer. Then we can leave. His hand tightened on my waist. I want to get you home. Get you out of this dress. Heat flooded my face. Dante. Not like that, he said, but his eyes said otherwise. I want you to myself. Is that so wrong? Before I could answer, someone cut in. Mind if I steal your wife for a dance? A man asked. He was younger than Dante, maybe late 20s, with a predatory smile. Dante's grip on me tightened. Yes. I mind. Just one dance. The man's smile widened. Unless you're afraid she'll like me better. The threat was clear. This was a test. A challenge. Dante looked at me, and I saw the conflict in his eyes. Let me dance with this man and show strength, or refuse and look weak. It's fine, I said quietly. One dance. Dante's jaw clenched, but he stepped back. One, he said to the man. Touch her inappropriately, and I'll remove your hands at the wrists. The man laughed and pulled me into his arms. His grip was too tight, his body too close. So you're the one who tamed the devil, he said. I didn't tame anyone. No? He leaned in, his breath hot against my ear. Then maybe he's not as fearsome as everyone thinks. I pulled back. Who are you? Luca Castellano. His smile was sharp. I believe you've heard of my family. My blood ran cold. The rivals. The ones planning to use me against Dante. Dance is over, I said, trying to pull away. His grip tightened. Not yet. I have a message for your husband. Let me go. Tell Dante that his little marriage doesn't change anything. We're still coming for everything he has. His voice dropped. Starting with you. Then he released me and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. I stood frozen, my heart pounding. Dante was at my side instantly. What did he say? He said, my voice was shaking. He threatened me. He said they're coming for me. Something deadly crossed Dante's face. Did he touch you? Hurt you? No. Just scared me. Good. His voice was cold. He should be the one who's scared. He pulled out his phone and spoke rapidly in Italian. Orders, from the sound of it. We're leaving, he said, taking my hand. Now. He pulled me through the ballroom, past the curious stairs, out into the night. The car was already waiting. Get in, he ordered. I did, and he climbed in beside me. Drive, he told Marco, who was behind the wheel. Fast. We peeled away from the hotel, and Dante pulled me close, his arms wrapping around me. You're okay, he murmured. I've got you. You're okay. He said they're coming for me, I whispered against his chest. Let them try. His voice was hard. Anyone who touches you dies. I'll burn the entire Castellano family to the ground if I have to. I should have been horrified by the violence in his voice. Instead, I felt safe. We got home, and Dante didn't let go of me the entire way inside. He led me upstairs to our room and locked the door. I need to make some calls, he said. Handle this. But I'm not leaving you alone. Not tonight. He moved to his office door, phone already to his ear, but kept glancing back at me, making sure I was still there. Still safe. I changed out of the dress and into comfortable clothes, then sat on the bed, listening to him give orders in Italian. Cold. Clinical. The devil everyone feared. But when he finally finished and came back to me, his expression softened. Come here, he said, sitting beside me. I moved closer, and he pulled me against his chest. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I should have been more careful. Should have known they'd try something. It's not your fault. It is. He pressed his lips to my hair. Everything that happens to you is my fault. You're only in danger because of me. Then let me go, I whispered. His arms tightened. Can't. Won't. He pulled back to look at me. You're mine, Arya. And I protect what's mine. Even if it kills me? It won't. His voice was fierce. I'll die before I let anyone hurt you. Do you understand? I will burn the whole world down before I let anything happen to you. He meant it. Every word. And looking into his dark eyes, I realized something terrifying. I believed him. More than that. I was starting to trust him. Stay with me tonight, I said before I could stop myself. Not in the chair. Here. In the bed. His eyes widened. Arya. I don't want to be alone. My voice was small. Please. He studied my face for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay. We climbed into bed together, and for the first time, there were no covers between us. Just him and me. He kept his distance at first, staying on his side. But gradually, slowly, I found myself moving closer. Until my head was resting on his chest. His arm around me. His heart beating steadily beneath my ear. Thank you, I whispered. For what? For protecting me. Even though this is all your fault to begin with. He laughed softly. You're welcome. I think. We lay there in the darkness, and I felt his fingers running through my hair. Arya? His voice was quiet. Yeah? I meant what I said earlier. About figuring this out. Us. He paused. I know I took your choice. Your freedom. But I'm going to spend every day trying to make that up to you. How? By giving you everything else. His arms tightened around me. By protecting you. Caring for you. By being the husband you deserve, even if you didn't choose me. I should have laughed. Should have pointed out the absurdity. Instead, I just closed my eyes and let myself relax against him. Good night, Dante, I whispered. Good night, Arya. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I fell asleep feeling not like a prisoner. But like someone who was exactly where she was supposed to be. Even if I couldn't admit it yet. The days after the gala were tense. Dante barely left my side. When he had to work, Marco stationed himself outside whatever room I was in. Additional guards appeared on the grounds. The whole estate felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. And Dante? Dante was different. He was still gentle with me. Still careful. But there was an edge to him now. A darkness that hadn't been there before. I'd catch him watching me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Like he was memorizing every detail in case he lost me. We'd been sharing the bed for a week now. Not touching beyond the occasional brush of hands or feet, but sleeping side by side. And every morning, I woke to find him already awake, watching me. "You need to sleep," I told him one morning. "I do sleep." "No, you don't. You watch me sleep. That's creepy, you know." A small smile tugged at his lips. "Can't help it. You're beautiful when you sleep." "I'm ordinary when I sleep." "Nothing about you is ordinary, Arya." He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "Not to me." The gesture was becoming familiar. Almost comfortable. That should have scared me. Instead, it made something warm bloom in my chest. 2 weeks after the gala, Dante had to go into the city for a meeting. He didn't want to leave me, I could tell. He paced the bedroom while I got dressed, his jaw tight. "I don't like this," he said. "You'll only be gone a few hours." "A lot can happen in a few hours." He stopped pacing and looked at me. "Promise me you'll stay in the house. No walks in the garden. No swimming. Just, stay inside where Marco can see you." "You're being paranoid." "I'm being careful." He crossed to me and took my face in his hands. "The Castellanos are planning something. I can feel it. And until I know what, I need you safe." "I'll be safe. You have a dozen guards here." "Not enough." He pressed his forehead to mine. "Never enough." We stood like that for a moment, breathing the same air. Then he kissed me. Not demanding. Just, tender. Like a promise. When he pulled away, his eyes were dark with worry. "I'll be back by 3, he said. "Don't open the door for anyone but Marco or Elena. Understand?" "Yes. I mean it, Arya. Anyone else?" "I understand." I touched his cheek. "Go. Do your scary mob boss things. I'll be here when you get back." He caught my hand and pressed a kiss to my palm. "You better be." Then he was gone, and the house felt too quiet. I spent the morning reading in the library. Marco checked on me every hour, his face carefully blank. Around noon, Elena brought me lunch on a tray. "Mr. Moretti called," she said. "Wanted to make sure you were eating." Of course he did. "Tell him I'm fine." She nodded and left me alone with my sandwich and thoughts. I was halfway through my book when I heard it. Gunfire. The sound was distant but unmistakable. Pop, pop, pop. My blood ran cold. I stood and moved to the window. From here, I could see part of the front grounds. Guards were running, weapons drawn. More gunfire. Shouting. "Oh God." The door burst open, and Marco rushed in. "Mrs. Moretti, we need to move. Now." "What's happening?" "The Castellanos. They're here." He grabbed my arm. "There's a safe room in the basement. We need to." Glass shattered somewhere in the house. More gunfire, closer now. Marco shoved me toward the door. "Run. Go to." He never finished. A gunshot rang out, and Marco stumbled. Blood bloomed across his chest. I screamed. He fell, and behind him stood 3 men in black tactical gear. One of them smiled at me. "Hello, Mrs. Moretti. We've been looking for you." I ran. Pure instinct. No thought. Just terror propelling me down the hallway, toward the back stairs. I could hear them behind me. Heavy footsteps. Laughter. They were enjoying this. I made it to the kitchen before hands grabbed me from behind. I screamed and fought, kicking and clawing, but there were too many of them. Something pricked my neck. A needle. No. No, no, no. The world started to blur. My limbs went heavy. "Sleep tight, princess," a voice said. "We've got plans for you." Then everything went black. I woke to pain. My head throbbed. My wrists ached. When I tried to move, I realized I was tied to a chair. Panic surged through me, clearing the fog from my mind. I was in a warehouse. Empty. Cold. The kind of place where bad things happened and no one heard you scream. "She's awake." I looked up to see Luca Castellano approaching. The man from the gala. He smiled, and it made my stomach turn. "Welcome back, Mrs. Moretti. Or should I call you Arya? We're going to be spending some quality time together, after all." "Dante will kill you," I said, my voice hoarse. "Oh, I'm counting on him trying." Luca crouched in front of me. "That's the whole point. See, your husband has something I want. Territory. Power. Respect. And the easiest way to take it all is to break him first." I'm not going to help you break him. You already are. He pulled out his phone and snapped a photo of me. Just by being here. Just by suffering. Every moment you're in pain, Dante Moretti is being destroyed. And that. He grinned. That's worth more than any territory. He sent the photo, and I knew. Knew Dante would see me like this. Tied up. Terrified. Helpless. It would kill him. He's going to come for me, I said. I know. I'm counting on it. Luca stood. When he does, we'll be ready. And Mrs. Moretti? You're going to watch us kill your husband. Then we'll kill you. Slowly. He walked away, leaving me alone in the darkness with two guards who watched me like I was already dead. I don't know how long I sat there. Hours, maybe. My wrists were raw from the ropes. My head still pounded. And I was so cold. But worse than the physical discomfort was the fear. Not for myself. For Dante. Because I knew he would come. Knew he'd walk into whatever trap the Castellanos had set. Knew he'd risk everything to get me back. And he might die doing it. The thought made something in my chest crack open. When had it happened? When had I stopped hating him? Stopped seeing him as just my captor? Maybe it was the way he looked at me like I was precious. Or the way he'd held me after the gala. Or the thousand small kindnesses hidden beneath his darkness. Or maybe I'd been falling for him all along and just refused to see it. I heard vehicles outside. Doors slamming. Voices shouting orders. The guards beside me straightened, weapons ready. Then the warehouse doors exploded inward. Men poured in, Dante's men, I realized. There had to be 20 of them. They moved like a well-trained unit, weapons drawn, taking up positions. And then Dante walked in. He looked like death itself. His suit was gone, replaced by black tactical gear. He held a gun in each hand. And his face was empty of everything except cold, focused rage. Our eyes met across the warehouse, and something flickered in his expression. Relief. Fury. Fear. Let her go, he said, his voice carrying easily. Let her go, and I'll make your deaths quick. Luca Castellano emerged from the shadows, a gun pressed to his own man's head. No, not his man. Another hostage. Someone I didn't recognize. Not quite the reunion I planned, Luca said. But it'll do. Here's how this works, Moretti. You put down your weapons and surrender. Or I start killing people. Starting with your pretty little wife. He gestured, and one of my guards pressed a gun to my temple. I felt the cold metal against my skin and tried not to shake. Dante's eyes went completely black. Touch her, he said quietly, and I will make you beg for death. Big words from a man with no leverage. Lucas smiled. Put down the guns, Dante. Now. For a moment, I thought Dante might actually do it. Might surrender to save me. Then he smiled. And it was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. You made a mistake, Dante said. You thought taking her would break me. But all you did was show me what I'm capable of when I have nothing left to lose. He moved. Faster than I thought possible, he raised both guns and fired. The man holding the gun to my head dropped. So did 3 others. Chaos erupted. Gunfire. Shouting. Bodies falling. Dante moved through it all like a force of nature. Unstoppable. Lethal. Every shot found its target. Every movement precise. This was the man everyone feared. The devil himself. Someone cut my ropes, and I stumbled to my feet. One of Dante's men, I didn't know his name, pushed me toward the exit. Go. We'll cover you. But I couldn't move. Couldn't look away from Dante as he fought his way toward Luca Castellano. Luca fired, and I screamed. But Dante was already moving, the bullet missing by inches. He closed the distance and slammed into Luca, both guns falling as they crashed to the ground. It was brutal. Vicious. Dante's fists connected with Luca's face again and again, blood spraying. You touched what's mine, Dante growled between hits. You threatened her. Took her. Scared her. Each crime punctuated with another devastating blow. Dante. I screamed. Stop. You're going to kill him. That's the plan, he roared back. But something in my voice must have gotten through because he stopped. His fist raised for another strike, Luca's face already a ruin beneath him. Dante looked at me, his chest heaving, blood on his knuckles. Please, I whispered. I want to go home. The words seemed to break something in him. He stood slowly, leaving Luca barely conscious on the floor. Tie him up, he ordered his men. I'll deal with him later. Then he was crossing to me, pulling me into his arms so tightly I could barely breathe. "I've got you," he murmured into my hair. "I've got you. You're safe. You're safe." I was shaking. Full body tremors I couldn't control. "Marco." "I know. I saw." His voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry, Arya. I should have been there. Should have protected you. It's not your fault." "It is." He pulled back to look at me, his hands cupping my face. "Everything is my fault. But I swear to God, I will never let anyone hurt you again. Never." He kissed me then. Hard and desperate and full of everything he couldn't say. And I kissed him back with the same desperation. Because I'd realized something in that warehouse. Something that terrified me more than any gun or threat. I loved him. I loved Dante Moretti. The man who'd forced me into marriage. Who'd taken my freedom. Who'd turned my world upside down. I loved him. And I almost lost him. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against mine. "Let's go home," he whispered. "Yes," I agreed. Home. Because that's what it was now. Not a prison. Not a cage. Home. The aftermath was a blur. Dante carried me to the car despite my protests that I could walk. He held me the entire drive back, his arms like steel bands around me. At the estate, there was chaos. Police that Dante owned. Cleaners who specialized in making evidence disappear. Doctors to check me over. Marco had survived, I learned. Barely. He was in surgery. The guards who'd died, there were 5 of them. Men who'd given their lives protecting me. Because of me. "Don't," Dante said, reading my thoughts. "Don't you dare blame yourself. They knew what they signed up for. Knew the risks. They died because your enemies wanted to hurt you through me. They died because the Castellanos are animals." His voice was hard. "And animals get put down." I didn't ask what he meant. Didn't want to know what he'd do to Luca and whoever was left of that family. The doctor declared me miraculously unharmed except for some bruising and dehydration. He gave me something for the headache and left. Then it was just me and Dante in our bedroom. He'd been silent during the examination, but I could feel the tension radiating from him. Now, alone, he paced like a caged animal. "I almost lost you," he said finally. "I was in that meeting, and my phone rang, and I saw the photo and his voice broke. "I've never been that scared in my life, Arya. Never. But you found me. Not fast enough." He stopped pacing and looked at me. "Marco almost died. 5 others did die. And you could have." He couldn't finish the sentence. I stood and crossed to him, taking his hands. They were still stained with blood. Luca's blood. "But I didn't," I said firmly. "I'm here. I'm okay." "You're not okay. You're traumatized and hurt and I'm alive. Because of you." I squeezed his hands. "You saved me, Dante. I put you in danger in the first place. No. You gave me a life." The words felt true as I said them. "You forced me into this marriage, yes. Took away my freedom. But you also gave me safety. Protection. And I took a deep breath. And you gave me you." He stared at me like I was speaking another language. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I was so angry at you. So focused on what I'd lost that I couldn't see what I'd gained." I reached up and touched his face. "You're not perfect. You're violent and possessive and controlling. But you're also loyal and protective and you make me feel." "What?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Special. Important. Like I matter more than anything in the world." I smiled slightly. "Even if that's completely insane." "It's not insane." He caught my hand and pressed it harder against his cheek. "You do matter more than anything. More than territory. More than power. More than my own life." I know. And I did. I'd seen it today. Seen him walk into hell itself to get me back. That's why I'm not leaving. He went very still. "What?" "I'm not leaving. Not running away. Not asking for my freedom back." I met his eyes. "I'm staying. Not because I have to. But because I want to. Arya. I love you," I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. I don't know when it happened. Maybe it was gradual. Maybe it was all at once. But I love you, Dante. And I choose this. Choose us. Choose you. For a moment, he just stared at me. Then he pulled me against him and kissed me like I was air and he was drowning. This kiss was different from all the others. Not gentle. Not careful. But full of everything we'd been holding back. Passion. Need. Love. Say it again, he demanded against my lips. I love you. Again. I love you, Dante Moretti. He made a sound low in his throat and kissed me harder. His hands were in my hair, on my waist, pulling me closer like he couldn't get close enough. I love you, he said between kisses. I've loved you since the moment I saw you in that hallway. Since you smiled at me like I was just a man and not a monster. I've been obsessed with you. Consumed by you. And I thought I'd never hear you say it back. Well, I'm saying it. I pulled back slightly to look at him. I love you. Even though you're controlling and overprotective and slightly insane. He laughed, and the sound was beautiful. Only slightly. Completely. But I love you anyway. Good. He picked me up, making me squeal. Because I'm never letting you go. You're stuck with me, Mrs. Moretti. I can think of worse fates, I said, wrapping my arms around his neck. He carried me to the bed and laid me down gently. Then he just looked at me, his expression full of wonder. I was so scared, he whispered. When I saw that photo, when I realized they had you, I lost my mind. I would have burned down the whole city to find you. I know. I pulled him down beside me. I was scared too. But not for me. For you. I knew you'd come, and I knew they'd try to kill you, and I thought, my voice cracked. I thought I might lose you before I ever got to tell you that I love you. You'll never lose me. He pressed his forehead to mine. I'm yours, Arya. Completely. Irrevocably. Forever. Forever is a long time. Not long enough, he said. Not nearly long enough. We lay there together, holding each other, letting the terror of the day fade. And for the first time since this all began, I felt at peace. This was my choice. My decision. Not forced. Not coerced. Mine. Dante? I said quietly. Him? What happens now? With the Castellanos? His expression hardened. They're done. Finished. By tomorrow, their family won't exist anymore. You're going to kill them all? Everyone who had a hand in taking you. Yes. He met my eyes. Does that bother you? It should have. Should have horrified me. But all I felt was, safe. No, I admitted. Is that wrong? Probably. He smiled slightly. But I don't care. As long as you're safe, as long as you're with me, nothing else matters. Nothing else, I agreed. He kissed me again, softer this time. Then he pulled me against his chest, and I listened to his heartbeat. Strong. Steady. Alive. We both were. And tomorrow, we'd start our real life together. Not as captor and prisoner. Not as forced husband and wife. But as partners. As lovers. As two people who'd found each other in the darkest circumstances and somehow made it into something beautiful. I love you, Dante whispered into my hair. I love you too, I whispered back. And for the first time since my father had told me I was being married off, I meant every word. This was my life now. My choice. My home. And I wouldn't change a single thing. 3 months later, I stood in the garden watching the sun set over the estate. Dante's arms came around me from behind, pulling me back against his chest. What are you thinking about? He murmured. How different everything is from what I expected. Good different or bad different? Good. I turned in his arms to face him. Definitely good. The past 3 months had been transformative. The Castellano family was gone, eliminated completely. Other rivals had seen what happened when you threatened Dante Moretti's wife and decided cooperation was safer than competition. The house felt different now. Lighter. Like a home instead of a fortress. I'd started taking online classes again. Dante had arranged for a piano teacher to come twice a week. I was even talking to my father again, not often, and always supervised, but Dante had lifted the ban after seeing how much it bothered me. And Dante had softened. Oh, he was still the ruthless mob boss everyone feared. Still made decisions that probably kept him up at night. But with me, he was gentle. Loving. The man I'd fallen for. I never thought I'd be happy here, I admitted. Never thought I'd love you. And now? Now I can't imagine being anywhere else. I smiled. You've ruined me for normal life, Dante Moretti. Good. He kissed me softly. Because you've ruined me for anything that isn't you. Dramatic. True. He pulled back slightly. I have something for you. Another gift? You spoil me too much. Impossible. He pulled a small box from his pocket. My heart stuttered. We were already married, so it couldn't be a ring. Could it? Open it, he said. I did, and gasped. Inside was a key. Old-fashioned. Ornate. What's this? The gate, he said quietly. To the estate. I'm having the locks changed so this key opens them. He met my eyes. You're not a prisoner anymore, Arya. You never really were, but I want you to know, you can leave. Anytime. The gates will open for you. Tears pricked my eyes. Dante. I forced you into this marriage. Took your freedom. And I'll never forgive myself for that. His voice was rough with emotion. But I want you to know that you're free now. If you want to leave, if you want to go back to your old life, I won't stop you. You idiot, I said, laughing through my tears. I don't want to leave. You don't? No. I closed the box and pressed it back into his hand. Keep it. Or throw it away. Because I'm not going anywhere. Arya. I love you, Dante. And this is my home. Not because you're keeping me here, but because this is where I want to be. I touched his face. With you. Always with you. He pulled me into a kiss that made my toes curl. When we broke apart, he was smiling. You're sure? Completely. I smiled back. Though I reserve the right to use that key if you ever become unbearable. Fair. He pulled me closer. I can work with that. We stood there in the garden as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. And I realized something. My father had sold me to save his life. Dante had taken me to satisfy an obsession. But somehow, in the midst of all that darkness and wrongness, we'd found something real. Something beautiful. Something that was completely ours. Ready to go inside? Dante asked. In a minute. I rested my head against his chest. I just want to stay here a little longer. With you. Forever, he promised. We have forever. And looking up at him, seeing the love in his eyes, I knew it was true. This was my life now. My choice. My love. And I wouldn't change a single thing. 1 year later. The conference room was filled with dangerous men. I recognized most of them now. Antonio Russo, who controlled the ports. Giovanni Costa, weapons. Marco De Luca, no relation to our Marco, who handled distribution networks. And a dozen others, all powerful in their own right. All ruthless. All watching me with varying degrees of curiosity and respect. I sat at Dante's right hand, exactly where I'd sat for the past 6 months of these meetings. At first, they'd been shocked. A woman at the table? Dante's wife, no less? It was unprecedented. But Dante had made it clear, I was his partner in everything. And anyone who had a problem with that could take it up with him. No one had been stupid enough to try. The shipment from Rotterdam is delayed, Antonio was saying. Customs is being difficult. Pay them, Dante said simply. We have people there. Use them. Already tried. Someone's interfering. I'd been reviewing the documents while they talked. Numbers, shipping manifests, customs declarations. It was all coded, of course. But I'd learned to read between the lines. It's not customs, I said quietly. The room went silent. All eyes turned to me. Dante's hand found mine under the table, a brief squeeze of encouragement. What do you mean? Antonio asked, his tone careful. He'd learned to respect my input, but he was still old school enough to bristle at a woman correcting him. Look at the pattern. I pulled up the spreadsheet on my laptop and projected it onto the screen. 3 shipments delayed in the past month. All different ports, but all using the same customs broker. And here, I highlighted a series of payments. Someone's been making deposits into an account linked to that broker. Small amounts. Untraceable. But consistent. Giovanni leaned forward. Someone's paying him to delay our shipments. Exactly. I switched screens. And if you look at who benefits from those delays. I pulled up market data. Our competitors have been moving product faster. Taking advantage of the gaps we're leaving. Dante smiled, pride clear on his face. Who? I'd already done the research. The Baron family. They've increased their market share by 15% in the past quarter. The room erupted in angry muttering. I'll handle it, Dante said, his voice cutting through the noise. Giovanni, find the broker. Make an example of him. Antonio, reach out to our contacts in the Barone family. Let them know we're not pleased. How displeased? Giovanni asked. Very. Dante's smile was cold. But no bodies. Not yet. We'll give them a chance to back down. After that. He shrugged. The meeting continued, and I contributed where appropriate. I'd learned so much in the past year. Not just about the business, though I knew far more about criminal enterprises than any literature major should, but about power dynamics. About reading people. About survival. I'd become someone I never thought I could be. Mrs. Moretti. Not just in name, but in truth. When the meeting finally ended, the men filed out, several nodding respectfully at me as they passed. Antonio even smiled. Good catch today, he said. Saved us a lot of money. Just doing my part. When we were alone, Dante pulled me into his arms. You were brilliant. I just looked at the numbers. You saw what no one else did. Including me. He kissed my forehead. You're invaluable, you know that. I'm useful, I corrected. There's a difference. To me, there isn't. He tilted my chin up. You're my partner, Arya. In everything. I meant that. I smiled. I know. It had taken time to get here. Months of earning respect, of proving I wasn't just Dante's pretty wife. Of showing these men that I had a mind worth listening to. But I'd done it. And somewhere along the way, I'd stopped feeling like an outsider and started feeling like I belonged. Come on, Dante said, taking my hand. We have that charity gala tonight. The one you insisted we attend. Because it's important, I said. We need to maintain appearances. Show the legitimate world that we're upstanding citizens. We're criminals, Arya. We're business people with diverse interests, I corrected. There's a difference. He laughed. Whatever you say, Mrs. Moretti. We drove home. I still thought of the estate as home now, truly, and I spent the afternoon getting ready. Maria and Sophia had become friends more than servants. They chatted while helping me into an elegant black gown, their hands quick and practiced. You look beautiful, Signora, Maria said. Like a movie star, Sophia agreed. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She was confident. Poised. Her eyes held knowledge they shouldn't, secrets they couldn't share. But she was happy. Truly, genuinely happy. Dante appeared in the doorway, devastating in his tuxedo. Ready? Almost. I turned to face him. How do I look? Like you're going to make every other woman at that gala jealous. He crossed to me and fastened a necklace around my neck. Diamonds? Obscenely expensive. And like you're mine. I touched the necklace. Subtle. I don't do subtle. I've noticed. The gala was at a museum downtown. Old money, new money, and criminal money all mixing together under the guise of charity. It was one of the few places where Dante's world and the legitimate world intersected. We made our entrance, and heads turned. They always did now. The power couple. The dangerous prince and his unexpected princess. I'd learned to enjoy the attention. Or at least, to use it. Dante. Arya. A woman approached, her smile bright and fake. So wonderful to see you both. Mrs. Pemberton. Old money. Her husband was on the board of several companies we had interests in. Lovely to see you too, I said smoothly. How's Richard? Oh, you know. Busy with work. Her eyes were sharp, calculating. I heard you've been attending Dante's business meetings now. How progressive. The barb was subtle, but there. I like to be involved, I said sweetly. A marriage is a partnership, after all. Of course. She sipped her champagne. Though I can't imagine what you contribute. Business can be so complicated. Dante's hand tightened on my waist, but I didn't need him to defend me. Actually, I uncovered a major issue with our shipping operations just this morning, I said conversationally. Saved us quite a bit of money. But you're right, it is complicated. All those numbers and spreadsheets. I imagine it would be overwhelming for someone not used to analytical thinking. Mrs. Pemberton's smile froze. I see. If you'll excuse us, Dante said, pulling me away. We need to make our donation. Once we were out of earshot, he leaned down to whisper, that was vicious. She started it. I know. I loved it. He kissed my temple. My little shark. We made our rounds, talking to politicians and business people and socialites. Some knew what Dante really was. Others were willfully ignorant. All of them smiled and pretended everything was perfectly legitimate. I'd learned to navigate these events with ease. Knew who to charm, who to avoid, who might be useful later. I'd become what Dante needed. Not just a wife, but an asset. Midway through the evening, I excused myself to the restroom. 2 of Dante's guards followed at a discreet distance. I was never alone anymore, and I'd stopped minding. In the bathroom, I was reapplying lipstick when someone else entered. Isabella. Dante's ex. The woman from our first gala. Aria, she said, her voice cool. Still playing dress up, I see. I capped my lipstick and turned to face her. Isabella. Still bitter, I see. Her eyes flashed. You think you've won? You think because Dante's obsessed with you, that makes you special? I think, I said carefully, that Dante and I have something you'll never understand. So yes. I've won. He'll get bored of you eventually. Men like Dante always do. Maybe. I smiled. But he married me. Not you. And that must sting. She took a step forward, and my guards tensed outside the door. But I held up a hand, stopping them. You want to know the difference between us? I asked. You saw Dante as a prize. Something to win. Something that would elevate you. But I see him as a person. Flawed. Dangerous. But mine. And I'm his. Completely. That's why I have what you wanted. Isabella stared at me for a long moment. Then she laughed bitterly. You're right. I did see him as a prize. And you? She shook her head. You actually love him. The crazy bastard. I do. Then you're either very brave or very stupid. Both, probably. I moved toward the door. But I'm happy. Can you say the same? I left her standing there, and when I emerged, Dante was waiting. He took one look at my face and frowned. What happened? Nothing I couldn't handle. He studied me, then pulled me close. You're extraordinary, you know that. You've mentioned it once or twice. We stayed at the gala for another hour, then finally left. In the car, I kicked off my heels and sighed in relief. Tired? Dante asked. Exhausted. Who knew being a criminal's wife would be so much work? You're more than just my wife. I know. I leaned against him. I'm your partner. Your equal. Your everything, he finished. You're my everything, Aria. I looked up at him, at this man who'd forced his way into my life and turned it upside down. This man I'd hated and feared and eventually loved so completely it sometimes scared me. And you're mine, I said softly. When we got home, I expected to head straight to bed. But Dante had other ideas. He led me to his office, our office now, really, and opened a safe I'd never seen before. Inside were documents. Contracts. Deeds. What is this? I asked. Your name, he said, pulling out papers. On everything. The house. The businesses. The accounts. He looked at me. If something happens to me, it all goes to you. Dante. I should have done this months ago, he continued. But I wanted to make sure you were ready. That you understood what it meant. He handed me the papers. You're not just my wife anymore, Aria. You're my heir. My successor. I stared at the documents, my hands shaking. You're giving me control of your empire? Our empire, he corrected. And yes. If I die, it's yours. You run it. You make the decisions. You're the head of the Moretti family. That's insane. That's trust. He cupped my face. I trust you, Aria. With my life. With my legacy. With everything. Tears pricked my eyes. What if I can't do it? What if I'm not strong enough? You're the strongest person I know. He kissed me softly. You survived being forced into a marriage with a monster. You adapted. Thrived. Became someone even my enemies respect. If anyone can do this, it's you. I looked down at the papers again. My name in bold letters. Aria Rose Moretti. Owner. Director. Head of family. A year ago, I'd been nobody. A girl in a bookstore, dreaming of a quiet life. Now I was this. A queen in a criminal empire. A power in my own right. Okay, I whispered. Okay? Okay. I looked up at him. I'll do it. But only on one condition. Anything. You don't die. I gripped his shirt. You don't get yourself killed. You stay with me. Always. Always, he promised. I'm not going anywhere, Arya. You're stuck with me. Good. I kissed him. Because I'm not done with you yet. He smiled against my lips. Not done? It's been a year. And I plan on having at least 50 more. I pulled back. So be careful. Don't take stupid risks. Because if you die and leave me in charge of all this, I will find a way to bring you back just so I can kill you myself. He laughed, the sound full of joy. Noted. We made love that night, and it was different from all the times before. Not just passion or need. But partnership. Equality. Two people who'd found each other in darkness and built something beautiful. Afterward, lying in his arms, I thought about everything that had changed. My father and I spoke once a month now. He'd apologized 1,000 times. I'd forgiven him, though things would never be quite the same. I'd made friends, other wives in this world who understood the complexity of loving dangerous men. Women who'd become my support system. I'd found purpose in the business, using my mind in ways I never had before. And I'd found love. Real, deep, complicated love with a man who would burn the world down for me. What are you thinking? Dante murmured, his fingers tracing patterns on my back. That I was wrong. About what? That day in your father's study, when I thought my life was over. I looked up at him. It wasn't ending. It was beginning. Best beginning I ever forced on someone, he teased. I swatted his chest. Don't joke. You know what you did was wrong. I know. His expression sobered. I know I stole your choice. Your freedom. And I'll regret that for the rest of my life, Arya. But I can't regret where we ended up. Neither can I admitted. And maybe that makes me crazy. Maybe it makes me broken. But I love this life. I love you. And I wouldn't change it. Even if you could. Even if I could. He pulled me closer, and I felt his heart beating against mine. Strong. Steady. Alive. I love you, he whispered. More than I thought I could love anyone. I love you too, I whispered back. My devil. My monster. My home. We fell asleep like that, tangled together, and I dreamed of the future. Not the future I'd planned as a naive 18-year-old in a bookstore. But the future I'd built with Dante. Dangerous. Complicated. Beautiful. A future where I was no longer a victim or a prisoner. But a queen. And I wore my crown well. 6 months later, I stood in the same conference room, but this time, I was running the meeting. Dante sat at my right hand, letting me take the lead. The expansion into the Southern Territories is complete, I said, pulling up projections. We've increased revenue by 30% and secured 3 new distribution channels. The men around the table nodded approvingly. The police commissioner is becoming a problem, Giovanni said. He's asking questions. Then we give him answers, I said calmly. The kind that satisfy him and keep him quiet. Marco, reach out to our contact in his office. Find out what he really wants. Money or power? Marco asked. Probably both. I smiled. Everyone wants something. We just need to figure out what. The meeting continued, and I handled each issue with confidence. I'd learned from Dante, but I'd also developed my own style. Less brutal. More strategic. But no less effective. When it was over, Antonio approached me. You're good at this, he said. Better than I expected. Thanks. I think. I mean it. He glanced at Dante. You chose well, my friend. I know, Dante said, pride clear in his voice. That night, as we drove home, Dante took my hand. You were incredible today. I'm learning from the best. No. He squeezed my fingers. You're becoming something more than I ever was. Something better. Don't sell yourself short. I'm not. He looked at me, his eyes serious. You're going to change this world, Arya. Make it into something different. Something that isn't just about violence and fear. Is that what you want? It's what I want for you. He brought my hand to his lips. For us. For whatever comes next. I smiled. Whatever comes next. Because that was the thing about our story. It hadn't ended with the kidnapping or the rescue or even with me falling in love. It was still being written. Every day, we wrote a new page. Sometimes dark. Sometimes beautiful. Always ours. And as I looked at Dante, my husband, my partner, my love, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever came next, We'd face it together. Always together. Because that's what we'd become. Not captor and prisoner. Not even just husband and wife. But two halves of one whole. Partners in crime. In love. In life. Forever. And I wouldn't have it any other way.